The Vanderbilt fortune, once legendary, was nearly gone by my childhood, lost to betrayal, bad advice, and reckless spending. My mother, Gloria Vanderbilt, trusted her lawyer and psychiatrist, who secretly siphoned millions, leaving her nearly penniless. The Cooper family scandal wasn't just about money. It was about trust shattered by those closest to us. Behind the glamorous facade was a story of loss, resilience, and the emotional cost of betrayal. This wound shaped my understanding of family, money, and the ghosts we all carry. The Cooper story begins with the Vanderbilts, architects of the Gilded Age living in opulence. Their world was one of glittering ballrooms, sprawling estates, and fortunes built on railroads and ambition. The family's name was synonymous with wealth, but beneath the surface, their lives were far from perfect. The grandeur of their homes masked a constant undercurrent of tension, as each generation struggled to live up to the legacy and expectations set before them. But plagued by pressure and rivalry, the Vanderbilts' lavish lifestyle came at a steep emotional cost. Family gatherings often turned into battlegrounds, with siblings and cousins vying for approval, inheritance, and social standing. The weight of their last name was both a blessing and a burden, shaping every relationship and decision. My mother, Gloria, inherited a fortune as a toddler after her father's death, but it brought more pain than security. She grew up surrounded by luxury, yet isolated from the warmth and stability most children crave. The halls of her childhood home echoed with loneliness, and the adults around her were often more interested in her inheritance than her happiness. The infamous 1934 custody battle made her the poor little rich girl, thrust into the public eye and taken from her mother. The court case was a media sensation, with every detail of her young life dissected by strangers. Reporters camped outside the courthouse and headlines speculated about her future, turning her childhood into a spectacle for the nation. This trauma taught her that love was conditional and trust was fragile. She learned early that affection could be withdrawn as quickly as it was given, and that those closest to her could also be the source of her deepest pain. The experience left scars that would shape her relationships for the rest of her life. Growing up under scrutiny, she became fiercely independent, but vulnerable to those offering affection. The constant attention from the press and the expectations of high society forced her to develop a tough exterior, but inside, she longed for genuine connection and understanding. Her search for love and security defined her life, making her susceptible to later betrayals. She moved through relationships, friendships, and marriages, always hoping to find the stability that had eluded her as a child. Each new chapter brought hope, but also the risk of heartbreak. The family's complicated history wasn't just about money, it was about a lack of stable, loving roots. Generations of privilege had created a legacy of emotional distance, where fortunes were passed down, but affection was often withheld. The grand estates stood as monuments to success, but also to the emptiness that can come with it. Gloria's early wounds set the stage for the choices and vulnerabilities that followed. The echoes of her childhood shaped her identity, influencing the way she loved, trusted, and navigated the world. Her story is a reminder that even the most privileged lives can be marked by profound loss and longing. The glare of public attention shaped her, but so did the loneliness behind the headlines. Fame brought her recognition, but it could never fill the void left by a fractured family and a childhood spent in the spotlight. These roots would haunt her for decades, casting long shadows over her journey and leaving her forever searching for a sense of belonging and peace. She reflected on her treacherous roots too. Was my mother's way of making sense of her past, a lifelong process, not a single moment. Her privileged but emotionally barren childhood left her feeling like an outsider. She turned her pain into art, stories, and resilience, refusing to be defined by the Vanderbilt name or its scandals. Betrayals by those she trusted, especially her lawyer and psychiatrist, cut deeply, but she survived. Her story is one of getting back up, transforming loss into lessons and creativity. Hearing her reflect taught me that our roots don't have to dictate our future. We can acknowledge their darkness and still grow toward the light. Her life was a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. The seeds of scandal were sown in misplaced trust and a lack of oversight. It all began innocently enough, with my mother believing she was making prudent decisions for her future. She was an artist, not a businesswoman, and she relied heavily on the advice of those she thought were more knowledgeable. My mother, an artist at heart, delegated her finances to professionals, her lawyer and psychiatrist, believing she was being responsible. She trusted them implicitly, thinking they had her best interests at heart. She focused on her art, while they managed her money and legal affairs. Subtle warning signs emerged. Despite her business success, her finances never improved. The numbers didn't add up, and there were always excuses. She was told it was just a temporary setback, a minor hiccup in an otherwise sound financial plan. The men she trusted isolated her, creating an echo chamber and making outside intervention difficult. They controlled the narrative, ensuring she only heard what they wanted her to hear. They made her feel dependent on them, and she became increasingly isolated from other sources of advice. Their advice was the only advice she heard, and my own questions were met with vague answers. Whenever I tried to intervene or asked for clarity, I was brushed off. They assured me everything was under control, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. I sensed something was wrong, but the deception was expertly hidden. They were masters at creating a facade of competence and trustworthiness. My mother was convinced they were her saviors, and any doubts I had were dismissed as paranoia. The psychiatrist became a business partner. The lawyer controlled her money, conflicts of interest everywhere. It was a tangled web of deceit, with each of them playing a role in the manipulation. They had her completely under their control. Their manipulation thrived in secrecy, and my mother's trust blinded her to the danger. She couldn't see the cracks forming in the foundation of her financial security. They took advantage of her trust, and their actions were shrouded in secrecy. The cracks in the facade grew, and soon the truth would break through. It was only a matter of time before their carefully constructed lies began to unravel. The signs were there, but my mother was too trusting to see them. The stage was set for disaster. The truth was on the horizon, and it would bring with it a storm of consequences. The deception couldn't last forever, and the fallout would be devastating. Betrayal wasn't new to our family. My brother Carter's death was a different, devastating kind. Carter, brilliant and sensitive, died by suicide in 1988, leaving my mother shattered. Her grief made her even more reliant on her psychiatrist, deepening her vulnerability. Dr. Zois, who witnessed her pain, later exploited her trust for financial gain, a profound moral breach. Carter's loss left my mother focused on survival, not money, making her easy prey. The men who defrauded her saw opportunity in her heartbreak. Their deception was more than theft. It was the exploitation of a grieving mother. This tragedy set the emotional stage for the financial scandal that followed. The wounds of loss and betrayal intertwined, shaping everything that came next. The scandal exploded into our lives with a force we never could have anticipated when my mother was blindsided by a massive IRS bill for money she'd never even seen. The letter arrived on a gray morning, and I remember the way her hands shook as she opened it, confusion quickly turning to panic. She'd always been careful with her finances, trusting only a select few to help her manage the complexities of her estate. But now the government was demanding answers, and payment, for income she never received. It turned out that her own lawyer, someone she had relied on for years, had secretly sold off her assets without her knowledge. He pocketed the proceeds, leaving her with nothing but a trail of unpaid taxes and legal nightmares. The betrayal was staggering, not just because of the money, but because it came from someone she had trusted implicitly, someone who was supposed to protect her interests. As the truth unraveled, the full scale of the deception became public knowledge. My mother, who had always valued her privacy, was suddenly thrust into the spotlight, forced to take her most trusted advisors to court. The story spread quickly, and soon everyone seemed to know about the betrayal that had shattered our family. The trial became a media sensation, with reporters camped outside the courthouse, and headlines splashed across newspapers. Details emerged of how her lawyer and even her psychiatrist had manipulated her, exploiting her trust and stealing millions. The public was riveted by the drama, but for us, it was a nightmare playing out in front of the world. My mother took the stand, her voice trembling as she recounted the violation of her trust. She was forced to relive every painful detail, her dignity laid bare before strangers. The courtroom was silent as she described how those she depended on had turned her life upside down. In the end, the jury ruled in her favor, awarding her a judgment that was supposed to make things right. But the victory was hollow. She never saw a cent of the money she was owed. The damage had already been done, and no verdict could undo the years of loss and heartache. Her lawyer was disbarred and died soon after, his reputation in ruins. The psychiatrist lost his license, barred from ever practicing again. But their punishment brought little comfort. The people who had caused so much pain were gone, but the consequences of their actions lingered. Justice, in the legal sense, had been served. But for my mother, the financial devastation was permanent. The money was gone, and with it, the sense of security she had worked her whole life to build. The scars left behind were invisible, but they ran deep. The scandal didn't just affect her, it destroyed our family's stability. We lost our home, and the weight of crushing debt settled over us like a storm cloud. Every day became a struggle to rebuild, to find hope in the aftermath of betrayal. In the end, the true cost was far greater than money. It was the loss of trust, the shattering of relationships, and the painful realization that some wounds never fully heal. The emotional fallout was worse than the financial loss. My mother's deepest fears, being alone and unable to trust, were confirmed. The betrayal by her psychiatrist, who knew her most intimate pain, was especially cruel. She blamed herself for being naive, but she was simply trusting. The scandal reinforced her sense of victimhood, but it also brought us closer. Together, we sorted through the mess, and I saw her resilience firsthand. She sold her homes, paid off debts, and rebuilt her life in a smaller apartment filled with art and hope. She found joy in creativity and relationships, not possessions. The scars remained, but she refused to be defined by them. She taught me that true wealth is measured in strength, not money. After the scandal, my mother chose to rebuild, not retreat. She created a new legacy, one of art, writing, and resilience, not inheritance. She sold her homes, faced the IRS, and moved into a modest apartment she transformed into a sanctuary. We became partners, co-writing a book and filming a documentary, deepening our bond. Her story became one of survival and optimism, not victimhood. She proved it's never too late to start over. Her true inheritance was her strength and grace in adversity. That is the legacy she left me and the world. Every family has a story. Ours is one of wealth, loss, and resilience. My mother's life showed the power of confronting and reclaiming our stories. Her financial betrayal is a lesson in perseverance and the courage to rebuild. Our lives are shaped not by what happens to us, but by how we respond. If this story moved you, I invite you to join me as we explore more stories that shape us all. There's always another layer to uncover. Thank you for listening.